Welcome to Thinking Deeper by 6-7. Today, we are exploring a fascinating clash of ideas regarding God, the decline of new atheism, and humanity's modern crisis of meaning. We are unpacking a deep dialogue between an interviewer and a historian to see if purpose can truly be found in a purely material universe, or if the ancient texts of Christianity hold up to modern scrutiny.
Yeah, it's a really massive topic for this deep dive.
It really is. And, for the last 2 decades, society assumed that abandoning religion would just create this enlightened utopia.
Right, like an instant secular paradise.
Exactly. But instead, we are facing record levels of anxiety and just a massive loss of purpose.
It is the ultimate paradox, really. I mean, we traded the constraints of religion for total individual freedom, but we ended up feeling completely unanchored.
Yeah, totally adrift.
Like the new atheism movement of the early 2000s promised that stepping away from God would liberate us. But the actual application of that strict materialist worldview, well, it left people struggling with these massive metaphysical questions.
I get that. Because we want to look at the universe like a mathematical equation, right? Where a 2-year-old suffering from a terrible parasite clearly equals wrong and just disrupts the balance.
The classic problem of evil.
Yeah. I mean, how can an all-loving, all-powerful God exist when that kind of suffering happens? Without that math making sense, a religious framework of reality just looks murky and heartbreaking.
It does.
Yeah.
And that is arguably the most profound emotional hurdle to faith.
Definitely.
But the historian in our sources, he breaks down a theological counterargument that challenges the very premise of that equation.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, to objectively label that suffering as evil with a capital E, you have to acknowledge a standard of good with a capital G.
Okay, I see where this is going.
And if there's an objective moral law governing the math of the universe, well, that implies a moral lawgiver. Otherwise, under strict secular materialism.
Right, because evolutionary biologists point out that DNA simply doesn't care. It exists purely to survive and replicate. Wait, are you saying that without a creator setting those rules, we don't actually have the philosophical grounding to call a parasite evil, that it is just biologically disadvantageous?
Yes, from a strictly materialist perspective.
Man, that is a remarkably tough pill to swallow for a purely secular worldview.
Yeah.
Before we tackle how that moral lawgiver might actually interact with us, if you like my channel, please subscribe and hit the like button. So, if the existence of objective good points to a moral lawgiver,
Right.
the next logical question is whether that lawgiver has ever actually stepped into human history. Which brings us to the source's data on the Christian Gospels. I was genuinely surprised by this.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating history.
Yeah, because people often talk about the Bible like it is a massive game of telephone played over centuries. But the source points out that the Gospels were written just 40 to 60 years after Jesus' death.
It completely upends the whole telephone myth, doesn't it?
It really does.
We often view the ancient world with this sort of chronological snobbery, assuming they were just gullible. But in an oral culture, history isn't a game where a whispered message degrades over time.
Right, it was taken seriously.
Very seriously. It was communal and rigorously preserved. Writing these accounts just a few decades later meant that if someone fabricated a story about a massive public figure,
The surviving eyewitnesses in that community would instantly shut it down.
precisely, the sheer volume of early biographical texts for Jesus actually rivals what we have from major Roman emperors of that exact same era.
Wow. But, even if those texts are historically reliable, critics often ask why we need them at all.
Sure.
Like if we share 98% of our DNA with chimpanzees and chimps are perfectly content just surviving, eating, and reproducing.
They aren't having existential crises.
Exactly. So why do humans possess this paralyzing need to know why we are here? Why this intrinsic need for cosmic meaning?
Well, it highlights a stark contrast between two fundamental worldviews. Secularism essentially values you based on what you do.
Like your survival, your economic outlook.
Your utility to the group, yeah. But the Judeo-Christian ethic argues that you have intrinsic, unchanging value simply because you are made in the image of a creator.
Oh, wow.
You aren't valued for your output. You are valued simply for your existence.
Which has massive implications for you listening right now. I mean, with artificial intelligence threatening to displace millions of jobs, we are hurtling toward a massive societal identity crisis.
Absolutely.
If the modern world dictates that you are merely the sum of your actions and your economic output, what happens when a machine can do your job better? You lose your anchor entirely.
That is exactly the crisis of meaning we are facing. And it leaves us with a final thought to mull over.
Yeah.
If human beings are strictly the byproduct of time, matter, and blind chance, if our existence is just biological machinery, why do we possess such a universal, unquenchable drive to find a transcendent purpose that our basic biology simply does not require?